The evening was quiet, too quiet for someone whose life had suddenly become loud. Hailey sat near the window of her small apartment, her knees drawn close to her chest, watching the city breathe outside. Cars moved like glowing veins through the streets below, people rushing toward lives that felt far bigger than her own. The soft hum of the ceiling fan filled the room, gently stirring the curtains that framed the fading sunlight. Just weeks ago, this same room had felt safe. Predictable. Invisible. Now, everything felt different. Her phone rested beside her, face up, as if waiting for something. Hailey tried to distract herself, scrolling, reading, breathing, but her eyes kept drifting back to that screen. Ever since the advertisement aired, calls had come and gone. Compliments. Meetings. Promises. But nothing that felt real. She pressed her lips together, reminding herself not to expect too much. Hope, she had learned, could be dangerous. Then the phone vibrated. Not loudly. Not urgently. But enough to make her heart jump. Her manager's name glowed on the screen. For a moment, Hailey didn't answer. She stared at it, feeling her pulse in her ears. 1,000 thoughts crossed her mind. What if it's bad news? What if I'm not ready? What if I disappoint them? Slowly, she inhaled, and answered. Hello? Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Hailey, her manager said, breathless with excitement, are you sitting down? Her fingers curled tighter around the phone. Yes. I am. There was a pause. A deliberate one. The kind that changes lives. You've been selected for a new television series audition, the manager continued. Big production. National reach. Hailey's heart began to race. Before she could speak, the words came, the ones that made her chest tighten. The male lead is Jackson. Time slowed. That name echoed in her mind like a distant thunder. Jackson. She had seen him everywhere, on billboards, screens, award stages. A man known not just for talent, but presence. Confidence. A reputation that followed him like a shadow. Her throat felt dry. Him, she whispered. Yes, the manager said, voice lower now. And Hailey, there's more. Hailey's grip loosened slightly, as if her body already sensed what was coming. He personally requested you. The room seemed to tilt. Requested her? Out of all the actresses, all the polished stars, all the familiar faces, her? But, why? She asked honestly. I'm still new. I barely. That's exactly it, the manager replied gently. He wants someone real. Someone untouched by the industry. Hailey's gaze drifted to the window again. Her reflection stared back at her, wide eyes, soft features, uncertainty written across her face. Real. Untouched. The words felt heavy. I don't know if I'm ready, she admitted quietly. A small smile crept into the manager's voice. No one ever is. That's how you know it matters. The call ended shortly after, but Hailey remained still, the phone now cold in her hand. Jackson. Her mind replayed his name again and again. She imagined the first meeting, his confident posture, his knowing smile. She imagined standing beside him, feeling small yet seen. A strange warmth spread through her chest. Not excitement. Not fear. Something softer. Something unfamiliar. As night fell, Hailey lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Her thoughts drifted between doubt and curiosity, between caution and quiet longing. She didn't know it yet. But the call she had just received wasn't just an opportunity. It was the beginning of a story that would test her heart. The set was already alive with movement when Hailey arrived. Lights were being adjusted, cameras tested, and assistants rushed back and forth with scripts in hand. It was her first day shooting alongside the lead actor, and though she tried to remain composed, her heart beat a little faster than usual. Jackson stood a few steps away, surrounded by crew members. He looked exactly as the screen had always shown him, confident, composed, effortlessly commanding attention. Yet in person, he carried himself with a quiet professionalism, speaking calmly with the director, listening more than he spoke. When the director called them together, Hailey stepped forward. This was their first formal meeting on set. No dramatic introductions, no exaggerated reactions, just two actors standing under bright lights, preparing to work. "Let's do a quick read-through," the director said. They stood side by side, scripts open. Hailey focused on the pages, her voice soft but clear as she read her lines. Jackson responded smoothly, his delivery controlled and natural. Their interaction was simple, professional, and precise, nothing more, nothing less. Between takes, Jackson gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Hailey returned it politely. There were no lingering glances, no unnecessary words. Just mutual respect between two people sharing a scene for the first time. The director seemed satisfied. "Good. Let's move on." As they stepped apart, Hailey exhaled quietly. The first meeting was over, calm, restrained, and uneventful. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment marked the beginning of something important, even if she didn't yet know what it would lead to. The shooting schedule moved forward steadily. For Hailey, each day on set began to follow a rhythm. Arrival. Costume. Makeup. Rehearsal. Camera. Repeat. What once felt overwhelming slowly turned structured, almost calming. Jackson became part of that structure. They worked together mostly in silence, focusing on the simplest parts of the script. Scenes that required them to stand near each other, walk across the set, exchange short lines with neutral expressions. Nothing dramatic. Nothing personal. The director emphasized precision, posture, timing, positioning. Hailey listened carefully, adjusting herself with every instruction. She didn't want to make mistakes, especially in front of someone as experienced as Jackson. Jackson, for his part, remained composed and professional. He arrived prepared, knew his cues, and followed the script exactly. There was no unnecessary conversation, no attempts to dominate the space. Between takes, they stood apart, each absorbed in their own preparation. Yet working beside him required awareness. Hailey learned quickly how important timing was, when to move, when to pause, when to speak. Jackson was consistent, predictable in the best way, making it easier for her to settle into the scenes. Again, the director called. They reset their positions. Hailey adjusted her stance, keeping the required distance. She focused on the marks taped on the floor, grounding herself in the technical aspects of the shoot. Action. They delivered their lines cleanly. No added emotion. No lingering looks. Just professionalism. Cut. Good, the director said. Let's move on. During a short break, Hailey flipped through her script, reviewing the next scene. A slight breeze from a nearby fan turned the pages unexpectedly, scattering them across the floor. Before she reacted, a crew member stepped in to help. Jackson remained where he was, respectful of space, waiting until everything was settled before moving again. Sorry, Hailey said softly to the crew. No worries, they replied. Jackson offered a brief nod and acknowledgement, nothing more. As the day continued, their coordination improved. They moved through scenes efficiently, aware of each other's positions without needing reminders. The familiarity came not from closeness, but from repetition. By late afternoon, fatigue began to show. Hailey rubbed her temples lightly while waiting for the next setup. Jackson reviewed notes with the director a few steps away. When filming resumed, both of them adjusted naturally, conserving energy, focusing on clarity. The director watched closely. You two are syncing well, he remarked. That's good. Keep it simple. Hailey nodded, grateful. Jackson responded calmly, understood. As shooting wrapped for the day, the crew began packing up. Hailey gathered her belongings quietly, ready to leave. Jackson passed by her on the way out. Good work today, he said, politely. Thank you, she replied. You too. That was all. No lingering. No extra words. Just two actors doing their jobs. Yet as Hailey stepped outside into the evening air, she realized something had shifted, not emotionally, but professionally. She felt steadier. More confident. Because working beside someone experienced had taught her how to stand her ground. And for now, that was enough. Hailey returned to her dressing room after the morning shoot, her mind still processing the day. The early evening sunlight spilled through the blinds, painting the small room in soft amber. She sank into the chair, removed her shoes, and pulled the script closer. It was the next part of the series, the scenes she had yet to rehearse. She had been careful, attentive, focusing on every line, every gesture. But nothing, had prepared her for what she saw next. She flipped a page. Her eyes widened. A line described a kiss. And then another. And another. The scenes became progressively intimate, detailing moments that went beyond mere acting. Her fingers trembled slightly as she clutched the pages. No, this can't be real, she thought. Hailey's breathing quickened. Her stomach twisted. Her mind refused to comprehend the words. She had known this was a romantic series, but she had assumed it would be simple. Emotional tension, glances, perhaps a few heartfelt lines. Not this. Not intimate physical scenes. Panic began to creep in. She looked around the empty dressing room. The door was closed. Curtains drawn. Alone. She felt a sudden urge to hide, to disappear into the quiet, safe space she had always known. She pressed her back against the wall and hugged the script close to her chest. I can't do this. Her thoughts swirled chaotically. Questions and fear collided in her head. What if I embarrass myself? What if I don't know what to do? I'm new. I've never done anything like this. Her fingers fumbled with the pages, folding corners nervously. Tears threatened at the edges of her eyes, not from sadness exactly, but from an overwhelming sense of helplessness. A soft knock at the door broke her thoughts. Hailey? Are you okay? It was her manager, her female manager, someone she trusted more than anyone in the agency. Hailey had always relied on her for guidance, for reassurance when the industry felt too big, too fast, too unfamiliar. Hailey scrambled to gather the pages, trying to hide the script as her manager stepped inside. I don't know, Hailey admitted, her voice small, trembling slightly. There are kissing scenes. I've never done anything like this. I don't know if I can. Her manager closed the door gently and sat beside her, soft eyes filled with understanding. It's okay, Hailey, she said calmly. Take a deep breath. You're not alone. Everyone feels this way the first time. Hailey shook her head, still clutching the script. But, it's Jackson. He's so experienced. I'm new. I don't even know how to act like that without. I don't know, ruining everything. Her manager reached out, placing a reassuring hand over hers. Listen to me. It's acting. You're not being asked to do anything real. Your job is to convey the character's feelings. The rest, you'll learn step by step. And I'll make sure you're comfortable the whole way. Hailey exhaled shakily, feeling a small part of her panic ease. I didn't expect it. I wasn't prepared. I know, her manager said softly. No one expects it at first. It's normal to be nervous. But remember, you're talented. You're learning. And you're never alone on this set. Hailey nodded, still overwhelmed, but slightly reassured. She looked down at the pages again. The intimate scenes still loomed in her mind, but they weren't immediate. Not for 2 more weeks. 2 weeks, she whispered to herself. I can prepare. I can figure it out. For now, she would focus on the simpler scenes, the walking, the talking, the expressions that didn't demand anything intimate. She would observe, learn, and absorb everything. And when the time came, she hoped she would find a way to navigate the challenge without panic. 2 weeks. Enough time, she reminded herself. Time to breathe. Time to steady herself. Time to prepare. Hailey exhaled slowly, letting the tension in her shoulders ease just a fraction. The night stretched ahead, quiet and calm. For the first time since she saw those pages, she allowed herself a small measure of relief. She wasn't ready, but she had time. And sometimes, she realized, time was the only thing she needed to face what seemed impossible. The room was quiet, almost too quiet, except for the distant hum of the studio outside. Hailey sat on the edge of the chair, the script resting forgotten on the small table beside her. She had tried to focus, tried to distract herself, but the scenes, especially the intimate ones, kept replaying in her mind. For hours, she had thought. She had rehearsed lines silently, paced the room, and tried to breathe. But each time she imagined the upcoming scenes, the tension returned like a tight knot in her chest. Her hands shook slightly, and her throat felt dry. Finally, unable to carry the weight any longer, Hailey called her manager. Her manager arrived promptly, soft footsteps crossing the room, and immediately noticed the distress. "Hailey?" she asked gently. "What's wrong?" Hailey couldn't stop it anymore. The emotion she had been holding back all day spilled over. Tears welled in her eyes, and before she could think, she was crying, small, quiet sobs that shook her frame. I just. I can't do this," she whispered between breaths, clutching the chair's edge as if it were a lifeline. I've never faced anything like this. I don't know how I'll manage the intimate scenes. I don't even know if I can." Her voice cracked. She hid her face in her hands, ashamed of how fragile she felt. Her manager moved closer, sitting beside her. Without speaking, she placed a comforting hand on Hailey's shoulder. The gesture was gentle, patient, and full of understanding. "You're allowed to feel this way," her manager said softly. "It's completely normal. Everyone feels overwhelmed the first time they encounter something unfamiliar, especially in this industry." Hailey sniffled, lifting her face just slightly. "But, it's Jackson. He's so experienced. And I'm so new. I can't even imagine how I'm supposed to act. What if I fail? What if I embarrass myself?" Her manager shook her head gently, giving a small, reassuring smile. "No one expects perfection. You're learning. You're talented, and that's why you were chosen. You're not alone in this. And remember, you'll always have someone to guide you if you feel uncertain." Hailey exhaled shakily, trying to calm herself, but the tears continued to slide down her cheeks. Her emotions were raw, unfiltered, a mixture of fear, pressure, and helplessness. She felt small in a world that suddenly seemed too vast. Her manager stayed close, letting her cry, offering comfort without pushing for explanations or solutions. Once Hailey had regained some composure, she gently took the manager's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, voice still trembling. I don't know what I would do without you." "You don't have to do anything alone," her manager replied. "I'll be here, and I'll make sure you're supported every step of the way." After a while, the manager stood, straightened Hailey's hair gently, and gave her a final, reassuring smile. "You'll be fine. Focus on what you can control for now, and take it one step at a time. I'll check in later, okay?" Hailey nodded, wiping her cheeks. "Okay." As her manager left the room, closing the door softly behind her, Hailey sat in silence, taking slow breaths. She felt slightly lighter, but the weight of the upcoming scene still pressed against her chest. The thought of performing them in front of everyone, especially Jackson, was intimidating. What Hailey didn't know was that her manager had already called Jackson's manager shortly after leaving. They were longtime friends, and she trusted her to handle the situation carefully. Her manager's message was simple. Hailey was nervous about the upcoming intimate scenes, feeling unprepared and emotional. But it was to be kept strictly confidential. Hailey didn't need to know. The goal was only to make sure that when the time came, she would be supported and guided, and any potential difficulties would be anticipated by the production team. The secret was safe. Hailey, meanwhile, sat back and exhaled slowly, unaware that someone else now knew about her fears. She only knew that for the first time since seeing those pages, she had shared her feelings with someone she trusted, and that, somehow, it had helped. It was a fragile sense of relief, but for now, it was enough.
The morning sun had barely begun to warm the city when Hailey's manager's phone rang. The caller ID made her pause. It was Jackson. Her eyes widened. She hesitated for a moment, unsure whether to answer. After all, she rarely spoke to him directly. Everything usually went through his manager. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Good morning." Jackson's voice was calm, measured, and carried a hint of urgency. "I need to meet you today, as soon as possible. And please don't tell Hailey." Her pulse quickened. The request was unusual, highly unusual. "Of course," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'll be there." After hanging up, she leaned back against her chair, stunned. Jackson himself directly calling her, asking to meet, and the instruction to keep it secret from Hailey. She felt a mixture of shock and unease. But there was no time to dwell. Hailey's trust, her comfort on set, had to be the priority. She took a deep breath and gathered her things, heading to the meeting with a mixture of curiosity and anxiety. The meeting took place at a quiet cafe near the studio. Jackson was already there, sitting at a corner table with his manager. They both rose politely as she approached, gesturing for her to sit. She settled into her chair, attempting a calm professionalism despite the storm of emotions inside her. Jackson's manager spoke first, his tone formal but direct. "Thank you for coming on short notice." Then he looked at her squarely. "We discussed Hailey's concern about the upcoming intimate scenes. Jackson wanted to make sure we're all aware of the situation. He is serious about handling it professionally." Hailey's manager's jaw tightened. She felt a surge of anger. How dare anyone discuss her client's private insecurities without her consent? "I understand," she said carefully, keeping her tone neutral. "But Hailey confided in me personally. I am responsible for managing her comfort. Anything discussed with her should remain confidential until I decide otherwise." Jackson's manager nodded. "We understand. That's why we requested this meeting with you first. We are not involving Hailey directly yet." Jackson wanted to be proactive so that the situation could be managed delicately. She exhaled, trying to calm the mixture of frustration and concern. She wanted to argue, to protect her client's privacy. But she reminded herself that the goal was Hailey's well-being. Finally, Jackson spoke, his voice calm, professional, and deliberate. "I've seen her work. I've observed her professionalism. And I want to make a request. It's unusual, but I believe it's in her best interest, and the production's as well." Hailey's manager raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. Jackson leaned slightly forward, meeting her gaze steadily. "I want to personally oversee her preparation for these intimate scenes. Not in a way that is inappropriate, but to ensure she is comfortable, guided, and never put in a position that feels forced. I also want to collaborate closely with you so that we can support her fully." Hailey's manager felt a mixture of shock and incredulity. The audacity, the directness, yet beneath it, there was a professional intent she could not ignore. Jackson's words hung in the air, deliberate and firm, leaving the room tense, silent, and waiting.